In Dane County, Wisconsin, I was a method server as a postmaster for the delivery of the mail in a lawsuit by a federal-judge, Janice-K, Logan. I was not involved in Janice-K, Logan's cases. I was simply a mail server. Because they did not like the mail, they attempted to prosecute me. This was after I had set up the global construct, after I had logged in the flag with the Secretary of the Navy's office, after I've done everything that I had done. I was on good terms with DC at the time, I thought. During this trial, I learned how two-faced they could be. The first 30 days, I was picked up. I was coming in to testify in another trial unrelated to the Wisconsin apparatus that was coming against me. But I did one very intelligent thing. I registered my paperwork first under 3-day notice with the Secretary of the Navy's office for the martial law, because I was walking into a foreign vessel in dry dock under martial law. I registered the contract with the Secretary of the State's office for the state of North Carolina. I registered it with the nearest post office to the courthouse and through the U.S. Customs in the territory of the North Carolina. When I showed up to testify in that specific trial, I was taken in the back room by the U.S. Marshal Service. And I held on to my paperwork. I wouldn't let go of my paperwork. And they told me that they were going to move me to Wisconsin. They had charges against me there. Of course, I looked at the charges, and I said, well, there's nothing but boxes here. Anything in a box is not on a page. U.S. Marshal Service wouldn't hear it. They took me out into the car, the U.S. Marshals did, and they had the prosecutor, they put him on speaker. Because the guy's like, the Marshal's like, you're right, this is boxing. We shouldn't move you. He says, but you got to hear this. And they had the prosecutor for Dane County, his name was Roy Cordy. They had Roy Cordy on the phone, and Roy Cordy's words were, hurt him. The marshals looked at me, and they had a look of fear. And the guy's like, I don't want to hurt you. I said, okay. He says, you comprehend what you're walking into? I says, somebody wants to hurt me. He says, somebody wants to hurt you. He says, I wanted you to hear that. Did not want you to not know what you're walking into. He goes, we know you know about the grammar. He says, but it's out of our hands. We have to move you to the county sheriffs. When I got to the county sheriffs in this specific place, because they were functioning as a facilitator to move me to Wisconsin, they engaged in hurting me. During that time frame, it was 30 days with no food on that specific role. What that meant was I wouldn't engage in usury with their system, which means they couldn't book me, couldn't get my fingerprints, they couldn't get my picture, and I wouldn't wear their clothes. So they stripped my clothes off of me and sat me in a cell naked for 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, the Wisconsin people showed up to move me to Wisconsin. When I got to Wisconsin, Dane County, Wisconsin, I stood my ground again, would not book, would not participate with their usury system, and it got physical. And they hurt me. They cut my clothes off, and they used food as a weapon. That was their number one tool as a weapon, because they knew that if I didn't eat, I was going to die. And if I were to touch the food, they would take me to booking and say, you've engaged in usury, you have to participate with our system. If I didn't touch the food, they would never take me to booking. So they were playing the game. And for 70 days, I sat there without food. At the end of 70 days, for the first time in the history of the state of Wisconsin, a judge, now during this time frame, they beat me down, they froze me out, it was cold. Well, they would spray the room full of cold water and then turn the air conditioning on, and I was naked, and they'd throw me in these rooms. They'd beat on the walls, what's your name, what's your crime, what's your name, what's your crime, and then in the middle of the night, as they were chanting this for days, they had people pounding on the walls. They'd open up the door and go, what's your name, what's your crime? I refused to speak with them. They couldn't get me to traverse because their flags that they were flying were the flags that they were flying on their lapels were wrong. They were all flying yellow fringe flags, and I had the flag filed at the United Nations and at the Pentagon, and I had a duty to never surrender it. So, yeah, I was a sovereign. I had the flag. I had the credentials to be what I was doing, and they were trying to get me to go into their system, and I refused. And I have that right because I'm a sovereign. I have a flag. They couldn't identify who they were because they were wearing yellow fringe flags, and I know that yellow fringe flag means nothing. So they were advertising nothing because they were nothing. So it was very difficult, hard to navigate through that. During the end of that 70th day, for the first time in the history of the state of Wisconsin, the judge left the bench. What that means is he took off his robe and came off onto my plane and sat across the table, and he cried. And he said such courage and conviction I've never seen. The guards didn't know what to do. My parents didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do. But I knew what to do. I yelled at the guards to get this man a chair. This is a man of the honor. Because he was honest. Sat across the table from me. We had a conversation. And he wanted to get me some food. He says, you're weak. You're beat down. You got to be hungry. I cried. I told him I was hungry. And then he had me move to a location to where I could have food. I agreed to that. And I only agreed to it because I asked him to show up every 10 days to check on me under the continuance of the evidence for maritime commerce under 10-day communication back. He says, yes, I will. He says, you're a judge. He says, yes, I'm a federal judge. He says, I will. And he showed up, have conversations with me. Then after I built a little strength up and I got up to about, at that time, I went from 186 pounds to 102 pounds. When I got my strength back up to about 126 pounds, they wanted to move me because I still was pretty weak. And they were still going to try to book me when they got me there. But I didn't book. I was tough. So here I am, the Postmaster General of the United States, Postal Service, the sovereign to secede Britain, and I've got these underlings with birth certificates with no education, beat me down, acting as a vassal for an apparatus behind them, a deep state, telling them that I'm crazy and that I'm the bad guy, and to get me to surrender the flag so that they could have a position saying that there's no one there to stop them. Because I control the flag, already legged in with the United Nations, already legged in with the Pentagon, already legged in with the Post Office. I've got a Constitution, I've got fee for freight, and I am it. And I've got this apparatus in Wisconsin hiding behind the deep state, attacking me, trying to get me to surrender, thinking that they're doing a good job and all real cool guys. And I'm the man. It's like, okay. And I couldn't be angry with you. You have to comprehend. These are big guys. They're beating the hell out of me. I can't be angry with them because I know what limited IQ they got, even though they're big, tough guys. Don't get me wrong. You know, there's some guys there that are like, I mean, you don't want to mess around with those guys. They're like 6'10", 320. These are big dudes, 340. These are big guys. It hurts when they squeeze on you. It hurts when they punch you, right? It hurts. But I can't get mad at them because they got the IQ of a two-year-old, right? I'm not mad. I feel sorry for them, but I could not get angry. And I never got angry with them for beating me down, right? Because it's my country. They're my fellow countrymen. I comprehend where they're at, but I know also where I'm at. And I also know that I'm playing to the death. I'm not giving up my flag. So, one of the things that they did in Wisconsin that I didn't really like was, remember the story I told you about my grandma with the placemats, a 90-year-old? At the time now, she's 93. And they chained me up in a room full of attorneys, and they put my grandmother on the phone, begging me to eat the food, begging me to join. I looked at those attorneys. They were laughing. They thought it was the greatest. I'm thinking, I got your faces right here. But what happened in Wisconsin is bygones let be bygones.